I'm an American who's been traveling the world and living abroad for nearly 2 years, and most of that time was spent in Europe. Bearing that in mind, in this video, we will be analyzing Americans experiencing culture shocks in different European countries. So right off the bat, I'm inclined to agree with this person right here who said, every day I find out we're getting scammed over here. Most certainly, Americans, especially American college students, are getting absolutely robbed blind. Because not only are they paying $50,000 or more to attend college, but they most certainly do not have the freedom to schedule their exams whenever they want. So imagine, you have people literally paying $50,000, $80,000, $100,000 or more in some cases to go to a university, and they can't even schedule their exams whenever they want. Make that make sense. And this is one of those things that I never would have thought about had I not known that they're doing that in other countries like Austria. Just having that level of freedom, not only during college, but after college, again with the student loan situation in the US, which I am going to assume does not exist in Austria, just like in most of the rest of Europe, if not all of the rest of Europe. I mean, it just seems like that whole experience is much more enjoyable in a place like Austria than the US. Now, as far as the national holiday situation, I definitely need an explanation for this because I don't really know what they meant by that. Do they literally just mean they just take the day off just because? Because if that's the case, then again, American college students are getting scammed. What I want to know is, how much money do Austrian universities cost? For a 4-year degree, how much can your average Austrian student expect to pay?
I'm an American in Switzerland. The only thing I'm going to be thinking as I walk around Zurich is how clean these sidewalks are. You could lick them.
I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm obviously going to eat truffle fondue. This is actually good.
I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm going to go shopping at the On store.
This is so cute.
I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm going to be self-conscious because I'll think people are staring at me, but I'll later learn it's just the Swiss German stare. Totally normal. I'm an American in Switzerland. I am going to wonder whether this is glacial water and whether it's drinkable. I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm going to exclusively use the Freitag bag that I got from my hotel. I'm an American in Switzerland. Here, I think alleyways are really cute. In America, they're creepy.
Another cute alleyway.
I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm obviously going to spend an entire day at the outlets. I'm an American in Switzerland. I am going to be absolutely amazed by how people keep their bikes here unlocked and they don't worry about them getting stolen. I'm an American in Zurich. I'm obviously going to go shopping at the Freitag store,
Which is just a bunch of containers.
and then I'm obviously going to climb all the way to the top. I'm an American in Switzerland. I'm going to think even the underpasses are clean.
Look at this.
Now, as far as people staring, I think this might have been my personal first culture shock in Switzerland. I was in the subway station at the airport in Zurich, and I was filming a vlog, and I guess that might have sort of played a role in my experience because it doesn't seem like there are a whole lot of people vlogging out there. But then at the same time, it seemed like everyone else kind of let me do my thing without really staring or even acknowledging my presence there. Maybe they just thought I was some other loud American or whatever. But there was this one guy there who was staring. I'm talking about staring to the point where I felt very uncomfortable. I've heard that this is a thing really in almost every country that speaks German. I don't know why that's a thing. I don't know what the association between the German language is with staring, but I've heard about this in Germany, haven't been there to confirm it for myself. Heard about this in Austria, again, haven't been there. And I've heard about this being the case in the German-speaking part of Switzerland, where, again, I do have an experience with that. And I find this really fascinating because in the US, I guess because people are more on edge and danger is just more of a daily reality, statistically speaking, and we'll touch more on danger here in a second, staring is not seen in a favorable light. It's just not something that you really do in the US unless you're looking to start problems. Now, I have noticed that people in Southeast Asia like to stare as well. I think that might have something to do with me being one of the only black people that they've probably ever seen in their whole entire lives, for some of them at least. But the staring thing, that definitely took me some getting used to coming from the US. On the topic of safety, when I was in Zurich, one of my biggest regrets from my time there was I pretty much stayed in my hotel room. And the reason why was because I went to my hotel room and I immediately fell asleep at probably 6 p.m., so early evening, woke up at around 11 or maybe even midnight. And I was looking out of the hotel window and I was thinking, wow, I really want to go out and explore a little bit more because I have my flight in the morning. I don't know when I'll get to come back to Zurich. I'm looking out of the window contemplating, but then I thought, I'm in an unfamiliar country. I don't really know anything about Switzerland, and I don't want to put myself in jeopardy. Looking back on it, I realize now I should have left that hotel room because I later found out that Zurich is literally one of the safest cities in the whole entire world. So if something was going to happen to me there, then it was just my time. So thankfully, I've never been in a position really anywhere in the world where I have broken something or dropped something at the grocery store. But in the US, there is a saying, if you break it, you buy it. Whereas it seems like in Germany, I don't know about the Netherlands or other European countries, or even here in Southeast Asia, that's not the case. There's no you break it, you buy it culture. And that honestly is very, very nice. Because mistakes do happen. Dutch portion sizes, oh my god. I just ran into that branch. And people make mistakes at the most inopportune times. People don't just plan on making mistakes at 4 p.m. at home. No, mistakes are mistakes because they're unexpected. Now, I will say, if, let's say, for example, you're test driving a car and you crash the car, then yes, there should be some type of repercussions. But if you just drop something at the grocery store, a food item or something like that, I mean, that shouldn't really be that big of a deal. This person right here said, meanwhile in Indonesia, you break it, you buy it. So evidently it's not just an American thing. I'm filming this video from Vietnam and we actually just left Thailand. Haven't been to Indonesia yet. But again, I've never been in a position where I had to find out for myself if that is a part of the shopping culture here. But I always try to assume that it is, and I generally try to be very mindful of how I handle certain things. I always use the basket. I'm never trying to carry a whole bunch of items at once because I don't want to find out. Now, as far as sitting on toilets to pee, that is something that I have not encountered anywhere that I've been. I've never encountered any bathroom that had that rule in place. But as someone who used to work at a restaurant and has cleaned my fair share of bodily fluids of all different kinds, unfortunately, I see why this rule would be a good thing. Granted, I feel like generally in public restrooms you would have a urinal. So I don't know if urinals just aren't as common in Germany, but in public restrooms, maybe unisex restrooms, where you have a toilet and that's it, I can actually see this being a pretty good rule for the people who have to clean up the bathrooms. Granted, even a rule like that may not necessarily guarantee that those people will have a fun time cleaning those bathrooms. Speaking from experience, I am traumatized from the stuff I had to clean in those restaurant bathrooms. But at the very least, this should minimize the effect, because if you're a man watching this, you know sometimes, and this might be TMI, but sometimes you go to pee and it just doesn't go the direction that you expected it to. I don't know why that happens. Okay, I'm 25 years old. I still have yet to find a reason why this occurs, but that is a real thing.
Americans who are participating in the trend of like European things that nearly put them into a coma.
I'm an American who moved to the Czech Republic, and these are the things that nearly put me into a coma when I first moved there. Ketchup wasn't free in McDonald's. Like, it came with your meal, but there weren't just like baskets of ketchup and condiments sitting on a counter for you to take as many as you want. There was no Dunkin' Donuts, and that really bothered me as a New Englander. I remember the first time I was hungover, I just literally did not know what to do with myself. I was sick, and I was like, what do you mean I can't get a bagel? I was shocked. Children walking alone and like riding public transportation alone, and I don't mean like 12-year-old children, I mean like 7-year-old children, like little kids with their even younger siblings. I was like, are we not worried they're gonna get kidnapped? What's happening here? Oh my god, also once a month there was like a nuclear alarm testing or something, like a national emergency alarm testing, where the first Wednesday of every month like an alarm would go off and it sounded like we were getting hit by a nuke, and I didn't know what was going on.
No Dunkin' Donuts. This is actually very relevant because just the other day my girlfriend and I were talking about donuts because, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, we're both fiends for sugar. I was telling her that generally my favorite donut flavor is a glazed donut, and she was like, I don't think I've ever had that before. And I was like, what? What do you mean you've never had a glazed donut before? That's literally, in the US at least, the default flavor of donuts. And she was like, yeah, I've just never had that before. In fact, I don't think I've ever seen that before. And I was like, so at the donut shop, they don't have glazed donuts? And she was like, well, I've never been to a donut shop. We didn't really have donut shops where I grew up. And I started thinking about it because I did live in the town that she grew up in, and I realized I don't think I ever saw a donut shop there either. And most of the time, whenever we did get donuts in the Netherlands, we got them from Albert Heijn, which is the grocery store. But what I want to know is, do donut shops really exist in Europe? Because it seems like more of a novelty thing, but I don't know if the Czech Republic is different in this regard, or if other maybe Eastern European countries are a little different in this regard, but I just never thought about the fact that I never saw a donut shop in the Netherlands. Because in the US, donut shops are a very big thing. It doesn't really matter how small your town is, you're probably going to have multiple donut shops there, and there is a whole trope, maybe you've seen it in the movies, where police officers specifically tend to frequent the donut shops. And that trope, unlike some of the other American stereotypes, actually has some credibility. Because in my experience, especially early in the morning, 4 or 5 a.m., if you drive by a few donut shops, the chances are you will see a police car outside of one of them. As far as children walking and taking public transit, this kind of reminds me of being in the Netherlands and seeing young children, to her point probably around 7 or 8 years old, just biking with their friends, at least I would think very far from home, because they would be biking in areas where I didn't really see any houses nearby. So this kind of blew my mind, because growing up in that age range, my parents had a pretty strict policy where I had to stay in the neighborhood. In fact, the only time I ever got grounded in my life was because I left the neighborhood to walk to the local corner store to get some candy for one of my older friends who didn't feel like walking there. I think the fact that her mind went to, these kids are going to get kidnapped, is pretty telling of the situation in the US, but it's not necessarily an unfounded expectation, because growing up in the US, we are taught about stranger danger. We're taught to not go up to a white van that promises to give you free candy. These tropes, just like the donut shop trope with the police officers, does have some credibility. Maybe that's why American children are getting kidnapped, is because the police officers are busy eating donuts.